wisdom,
prudentia,
justice,
justitia,
temperance,
temperantia,
courage.
fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
Welcome to the Sunday Stoic Podcast. I'm Steve,
And I'm Dan.
and this is the podcast where we apply ancient philosophy to modern life. The last several episodes have been about the Stoic paradoxes by Cicero. This week we are going to cover the third paradox, the idea that all vices are equal and all virtues are equal. What do you think about that? The idea that anything bad is equivalent and everything truly good, virtue, is equivalent. Maybe you're not sure what you think about that yet, but we'll talk a bit about it and you'll get our opinions as we go. Dan, would you like to kick us off today?
The matter, it may be said, is a trifle, but the crime is enormous. For crimes are not to be measured by the issue of events, but from the bad intentions of men. The fact in which the sin consists may be greater in one instance and lesser in another, but guilt itself, in whatsoever light you behold it, is the same. A pilot who capsizes a ship laden with gold, or one laden with straw. In external value there is some difference, but in the ignorance of the pilot there is none. Your lustful desire has fallen upon an obscure female. The mortification affects fewer persons than if it had been a high-born and noble virgin. Nevertheless, it is guilt if it be guilty to overstep the mark. Cicero, Paradoxa Stoicorum, number 3.
Wow. So, what do you think, Dan? Is wrecking a boat full of gold equivalent to wrecking a boat full of straw?
I think what they're trying to say is that externals, if it's true that they are indifferent, then you value them the same, and it's not the value according to the values that are given to them by the masses that matter. What matters is whether you behaved appropriately in the moment.
Yeah, the thing that was up to you was being a good pilot, and you were a bad pilot in both cases. In this
Right.
case,
And
yeah,
you failed.
you have failed.
Philosophy is not religion, and we are not obligated to believe everything that our forebears held. And this is definitely one where I'm still struggling with it to kind of understand. And also, my instinct is to not go along with this one.
Right, and I believe you were commenting that Massimo Pigliucci, for example, is in the same boat from what you've read, right?
Right. I went to his book on the same subject, and basically his take at the end of it was, I don't buy it. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly how I felt about it.
Yeah, the idea that all vices are equal and all virtues are equal does, maybe on the side of virtue, it's a little easier to grasp. I don't know, telling a lie that someone looks nice when they don't is not the same as murder. You know what I mean? But
I do, but I think he might be meaning that the wrongful act in that category. In both of his examples, it was lust, but what lust toward one category of externals with an obscure female versus lust towards a noble woman, and the other one was negligence in piloting, but negligence in piloting resulting in the wreck of a treasure galleon versus a wheat cargo vessel or something
right,
like that.
yeah, I don't know, but the thing is, it's all vices and all virtues. So
True.
my impression of a way to think about it is, I guess there's two ways to think about it. One, we're trying to reach perfection, or the ancients were. I personally don't believe that being a perfect sage is possible, but the ancients thought we all had we have the spark of the logos within us, and that is a piece of God, and therefore we have the potential to reach some form of perfection in terms of morality anyway, not in terms of bodily strength and so on and so forth, but in terms of our use of our judgments and our application of virtue. And so they thought we could perfect ourselves, and it's a noble cause. You have to have a north star to shoot for, something to navigate toward.
Right. And it's important to strive to constantly be making progress towards virtue and perfection, even when you know that you ultimately will never reach that destination.
Right, right. But this idea that we're on a path towards a goal, towards a destination, and anything that gets you off of that path, by definition, prevents you from reaching that destination. So if I am a thief, that's like turning off the road. If I am a killer, that's turning off the road. If I'm a liar, that's like turning off the road. In all those cases, I'm not going towards my destination. I can't reach that goal. Whereas the virtues are all various forms of staying on that road, that path towards perfection. That's the best thing I can think of. The other thing I've heard and comes to mind when we think of this idea that all vices are equal is that kind of like how you can drown in the ocean or a bowl of soup. The bowl of soup is not equal to the ocean.
Right. And I
Being
think the way they say it is if you're, 6 feet under the water, you're drowning just as much as if you are 100 feet under the water.
exactly. Yeah. So in none of those cases are you above the surface where you're hoping to be. And I think maybe that's kind of the idea here. It's just I'm not sure how useful it is to even worry about whether all vices are equal or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see this leading to anxiety too. This part of it is just that striving for perfection. If you believe it's actually real, you will be you're likely to be less forgiving to yourself when you inevitably act like a human and aren't you make errors and you make mistakes and then you beat yourself up for it. Maybe it's a useful model, maybe not. I don't know. I'll go ahead and just emphasize what Cicero said with 2 lines here. If virtues are equal among themselves, it must necessarily follow that vices are so likewise. Nothing can be added to virtue to make it more than virtue, and nothing can be taken away from it, and the name of virtue remains. Cicero, Paradoxa Stoicorum, number 3. So there it is from the horse's mouth that virtues are equal among themselves, and therefore the vices must also be equally bad, essentially, as they all equally prevent you from practicing virtue. They pull you away from virtue. And virtue itself can't be better than virtue because to the Stoics, remember, it's the greatest good. You can't enhance virtue. It's already the best thing there is. And you can't take anything away from virtue. It's just kind of like this perfect thing. You can't detract from it. If you take away from it, it's no longer virtue. It's now something else. And it can't be better than virtue. So these ideas that, once again, we're trying to reach some form of perfection, sagehood, for example, and anything that helps us get there is, likely virtue, helping us on the path. And anything else that's not helping us is slowing us down or turning us off that path. And therefore, they're all equally bad in that perspective. Now, Dan, did you want to talk about the contradiction you came across in Cicero's discussions?
He does seem to contradict himself later on, or so it appears to me. What then? Does it make no difference whether a man murders his father or his slave? There is this difference, that in killing a slave, if wrong is done, it is a single act that is committed. But many are involved in the taking of the life of a father. The object of violence is the man who begat you, the man who fed you, the man who brought you up, the man who gave you your position in your home, your family, and the state. This offense is greater by reason of the number of sins involved in it, and is deserving of a proportionately greater punishment. Cicero, Paradoxa Stoicorum, number 3. So here he's saying that there are degrees of blame in relation to differences in externals, as long as it relates to the relationship to your father.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That one leaves a bad taste in the mouth, doesn't it?
It sure does.
So yeah, oh yeah, well, if you kill your slave, that's not good, but if you kill your dad, that's really bad. It's like, oh, geez. But yeah, the idea, and I guess we should keep in mind, first of all, that Cicero was not a Stoic, but he was friendly towards most Stoic ideas, or a lot of them anyway.
Well, also in Roman times, all the senatorial class folks had slaves, and they were considered lesser by most of the people there. Seneca may have been an unusual man in that he did consider them of equal value. At least it seems so in the letters. But
Right.
it wasn't an abnormal position or a view to be taken by a senatorial class Roman to think that his father would be of greater value than a slave.
But it's just strange that based on what the Stoics say, I would think that killing any human would also be equivalent to, stealing a pack of gum or something, right? Let alone, but at least from the not approaching sagehood perspective. But
Yeah, but within the context of this particular Stoic paradox, yes.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But he decides he sees a difference in these forms of murder, and it's very wild. I wonder if there's a personal reason why he wrote that, something that happened to someone he knew or something he did that he felt he needed to justify. I don't know.
Well, if you read the old like if you read Suetonius and some of the other guys who wrote about the relationships between people, even Diogenes Laertius and stuff, there's a lot of skullduggery and assassinations and things that used to go on.
I know there were some emperors that were rough with their citizens, let alone the slaves that displeased them.
And also their family members, which is
Yeah,
exactly what Cicero is writing about.
sure. Yeah. So I don't I don't know how useful this one is for practicality and application to living a good life, other than do the best you can to stay on the straight and narrow, as they say, but don't change directions just because you have a bad day. We all make mistakes. To err is human, and none of us are sages. We're
True.
trying to make progress, right?
Oh, I also have a fun one. Epictetus was not discussing this directly, but he was expressing something similar. He was admonishing one of his students to practice prosoche and be vigilant in their attention to their studies, but one of his students seemed to have wanted to slack off a bit, and he questioned the importance of the need for this constant vigilance. If I make a mistake in these matters, it's not like I killed my father, is it? Slave! Where was there a father in this matter that you could kill him? What then have you done? The only fault that was possible here is the fault which you have committed. Epictetus, Discourses 1.7.
Yeah, there you go. Like, well, you didn't have the opportunity to make that horrible error here, but you made the one error that you that you possibly could do. Therefore, what the heck's wrong with you, boy?
You messed up.
You done messed up. Back to the woodshed. Yeah, that kind of a thing. So, Epictetus. I bet he'd be a scary teacher. I don't know. You think it'd be fun? Do you think he was fun after hours, or do you think he was? I know he's always vigilant, but
Well, I don't
man,
think he socialized too much with his student. Well, I don't know. Maybe he did, but most of them were in their teens.
that's true.
He
That's
was
true.
he was an older fellow.
Times were different. But
True.
actually, a side note. There's a podcast I started listening to recently called Time Suck. It's not for those who can't tolerate foul language and strange warped humor, but the guy does investigate true crime, historical things that have occurred, and so on and so forth. And he was talking about Lawrence of Arabia. Some person observing him commented that he was a true Stoic, as he was indifferent to pleasure and pain, and went on from there talking about his youth and how he handled himself. And I thought that was interesting that, obviously some military officer or whoever it was that wrote that back in the day actually understood a little more about the Stoics than a lot of people do today. Because today we would, indifferent to pleasure and pain is something very Stoic, but just he doesn't show emotion, is how a lot of people use it today. But it was an interesting story about his background and what he went through.
Well, I think that studying Greco-Roman virtue ethics was actually part of the education of upper class gentlemen of both America and the United Kingdom, going all the way up through the early 20th century.
Hmm.
And it just kind of fell out of fashion for whatever reason in the
Yeah,
30s.
does seem to have done that. Although I know there is some in like the Naval Academy and things now, thanks to Stockdale's influence.
Well,
and whatnot.
it's enjoyed a resurgence in popularity, but there was a long dark period where
Oh yeah,
it kind of disappeared.
yeah, but yeah, it's interesting when you another book I've run into the Stoics. It's funny how they just pop up. There's a book, and there's an audiobook version of this even on YouTube because it's an old book, but it's called How to Live on 24 Hours a Day. It's a bit dated in the way it views time, or how what kind of jobs we have and what life is like. But it does have some really good advice on how not to waste time and how to get enjoyment out of life by using your brain. When you're commuting to work, like contemplate some work by Epictetus or Marcus Aurelius. It'll give you hours of things to think about, and I don't know. It goes from there. There's a lot of advice in that book, but it's a cool little book if you ever get a chance to read it or just listen to it online. But the Stoics show up in a lot of older works, and I'm glad there's a resurgence now because I think the world could use it.
I concur.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add before we close this thing down for the week?
Actually, I do have one thing. If anybody out there has a better way to explain this Stoic paradox that we are just completely missing, please do write a summary to us and shoot it to us in an email.
Hey, feel free to record a summary, and if the quality's good enough, we'll pop it on the air as well. And, SundayStoic@gmail.com. Like us on a platform of your choosing. Share things on Facebook or Instagram or wherever you share your stuff. Get the word out there that we exist. We're not just shouting into the darkness. And don't forget to apply this stuff and seize the day.
Carpe diem.